Again, all praises to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I want to say peace to you in the name of his son. I count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I can come before the priest's word, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. I want to be brief this evening, but I believe this to be a profound message, and that is concerning the father of faith, Abraham. Abraham came from Ur of the Chaldees, and one thing about Abraham is that we can take from his life is that although those around him worship falsely, and he came from a people who worship falsely, when he heard the call of the Lord, he answered the call and walked in uprightness. And that was profound because not only did it set his life on a different trajectory, but it set his progeny on a different trajectory. And even to this day, we follow his example of faith. So let's pick it up, and we're going to pick it up in Genesis, the 12th chapter, verse 1. It says, "Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee." So what does he show us? He shows us the example of coming out. He's in Ur of the Chaldees, southern Babylonia, and he comes out literally, but also spiritually. And notice what it says, "And I will make of thee a great nation. I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed." So now this is the Abram. His name was later changed to Abraham, the father of many nations. This is his call. And he goes into a covenant with him. So now what do we find? We find again the manifestation of the Lord. Okay. And we find the faith of Abraham because he does answer that call and he is obedient unto the Lord. Let's pick it up in Genesis, the 18th chapter. Because at this time, the Lord, this is just prior to the Lord raining down fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah, which side note, which is a foreshadowing of what's going to happen to this entire world because of sin. Just to show you that, let's just take a detour real quick and go to Isaiah, the 24th chapter. In Isaiah 24, it says, in Isaiah, the 24th chapter, behold, in verse 1, actually, let's pick it up at verse 4. It says, "The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant." So because of lawlessness, judgment is coming, and that's what we should understand. He brings forth judgment when there's sin. He said, "Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left." Okay, so when you look at the example of Sodom and Gomorrah, understand that it is a consequence. What happened there, the burning of Sodom and Gomorrah, is a consequence for the burning of their lusts. And notice one thing, what did they have to do? They had to come out, right, of Sodom and Gomorrah. Right now, spiritually speaking, the things that are going on in this country is like Sodom and Gomorrah. And overall, the earth is full of sin. And what does he tell them? What does the Lord tell them right prior to his coming? What's going to happen? He says in Luke, the 17th chapter, like in 28, "Likewise, also as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded." They did what they wanted to do. He said, "But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed." Okay, but now let's go to back to Genesis 18, because Abraham heard the call, and notice what it says here. It says in verse 16, "And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him?" Notice what it says here. He says, "For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, And they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. Okay, so he knew what he would do, that he would lead his household in the proper way. And he did that. And he had children, and his progeny multiplied, and they went down into Egypt, and they went from roughly 70 souls to literally millions of people that left. And as they were led by Moses into the wilderness, and the door into the promised land was open, they're charged by Joshua. Notice what Joshua says unto the people as he charges them to do that which is right. This is Joshua, the 24th chapter. Joshua, the 24th chapter. And we'll pick it up. We will pick it up at verse 14. He says, now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth. And what is truth? His word is truth. The law is the truth. The commandments, that's the truth. And he said, and put away the gods which your father served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. So what does he mean? Put away the gods which your father served on the other side of the flood. What is that? That's the flood he's talking about is the Euphrates River. That's what that's talking about. Where does that an allusion to? That's alluding to the time of when, in the place of Abraham. Okay, and the fathers that he's talking about are Abraham's fathers, Terah and his forefathers who worship falsely. But he was a Hebrew. Why was he a Hebrew? Because he crossed over. And that's what he crossed the Euphrates River. He did that physically, but he crossed over from unrighteous worship to righteous worship. So that charge is something that we should carry on our very lives, that we should put away all the falsehood. And so it says, now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth. Put away the gods which your father served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. And in their captivity, they received some false worship, just like many of us have received false worship in this diaspora. But we need to put that false worship down. Verse 15, and if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your father served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell. So when they went into the promised land, or they were going in the promised land, those people, they worship falsely. We are not to partake in their false worship. He says in Joshua, he says, he charges them to do that which is right. He tells you what his family is going to do, because that's something he does have direct control over. He said, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And you know something, that's the same thing that the Lord said about Abraham, that he would lead his house in the proper righteous way. Revelation, the 12th chapter. So keep that in mind. The example that you see with Abraham, keep that in mind as you look to what is ahead for this world. This is the last place. Revelation, the 12th chapter. I said 12, but it should be 18. Revelation, the 18th chapter. And notice what it says here. And again, we should follow the example of Abraham. It says in verse 1, Revelation 18:1. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Babylon is the hub of all the false worship. And spiritually speaking, Babylon in the spiritual system is being perpetuated and carried out or carried on through Roman Catholicism. And the doctrine that this mother whore has given unto the world has intoxicated the nations. And you're going to truly see that during the rise of the abomination of desolation during Great Tribulation. But he goes on to say, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. He goes on to say in verse 3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. This is spiritual fornication. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So these people have been intoxicated by her false doctrine. They have made themselves wealthy through this false doctrine. But at a certain point, it all comes to an end. So now, at a certain point, judgment comes for sin. So what must you do? Because when you think about it, judgment begins at the house of Israel. That's just a side note. The Lord, so what we need to actually be doing right now is we need to be like, some refined soap and be cleaned as a people right now. Because when it's all said and done, judgment is coming. This is Revelation 18:4. It says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. So you don't want to suffer the consequences for this one. You want to get out of the way. You want to come out of false worship. You want to be like Abraham. And he tells you why. He said, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. So in the end times, understand that this judgment is coming, and what we must do is clean ourselves up to avoid the wrath that is coming, and we must follow the example of Abraham. I thank you for your time.